Welcome to the Inspired Focus Podcast. I'm Jamie O'Connor, and this is the podcast where you get to hear all kinds of incredible stories, tips, and tricks from humans who are living out their purpose in a truly fulfilled life. Our guest today, Kate King, is an amazing therapist who has built a new program called the Radiant Life Project and is coming out with a book in September. She has an amazing story after taking a 5-month sabbatical that led her to download and channel the Radiant Life Project. And this is truly such an amazing episode talking about the depth of motherhood, of the experience of really getting into alignment, and some really amazing tools and tricks to actually get into that place. I learned so much from this episode, and I'm so excited for you to hear about it and learn from Kate as well. If you're interested in taking yourself on a retreat, we have one in May 21st through 26th. And it is going to be in Todos Santos, Mexico, in Baja California, sir. And it's going to be a truly amazing and transformational experience for leaders who are ready to define success on your terms. This retreat is all about experiencing both deep and lasting transformation that is going to affect you, your business, your life, and your family in a way that you never dreamed possible, while also getting a deep reset. If you're interested in signing up, go ahead and go to Flourish, FLOURISH, Baja, BAJA.com, and join us. It's going to be an amazing experience. Now, here is your episode. Welcome back to the Inspired Focus Podcast. I'm Jamie O'Connor, your host, and I am so honored and excited to have our guest today, Kate King, because we have known each other a very long time, but are just catching up after, almost 2 decades probably. And it is so incredible and beautiful to see the alignment that we have in our lives together and what we're doing. When Kate reached out to me saying that she would love to be on the show with me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. Because what she is doing speaks so much to my heart and what I am also looking to support people in the world. And her background is so different than mine, which is so incredible. She actually was recently awarded the 2022 Best Counselor in Littleton, Colorado, which is incredible. She has become the founder of the owner of the Radiant Life Project, where she has a mission to create a ripple effect of well-being and empowering joy in our world. She's widely known for helping her audience learn to cultivate radiant lives for themselves that shine so brightly that they impact and improve the lives of those around them. Her work is filled with an expansive array of inspiring resources and tools, and I can't wait for you guys to hear about them today. The little amount that we got to catch up before we started this show, I was already just like, this conversation is going to be amazing. So, Kate, welcome. Thank you. I'm so excited to chat with you and introduce the world to everything that you're doing and the amazing things that you have coming up.
Thank you. It's so good to be on here with you. I love reconnecting like this.
I know, me too. It's so cool. I was thinking about, while we were chatting before, we met our sophomore year in college, and because we were paired as roommates after we both actually had a really, really horrible, tough roommate experience in the first quarter semester of our sophomore year. And I have this memory of you being just this light. And what I said when we first caught up was that I am just now in the last few years stepping into this work of helping guide women, especially into a purpose-filled life. And you had that inkling really early in life. Like really, I like saw you take these steps towards what the work that you're doing and making such a huge impact 20 years ago. And that's so incredible. Talk to me about where you're at now.
Yeah, I think I feel that sense of that light. And I think I've always been really kind of familiar with how that light burns inside of me and wants to radiate outward. And so I've kind of walked my own journey in different ways with figuring out how can I emanate that light? How can I share it with the world in ways that don't deplete and drain me? And that's kind of been an ongoing sort of push-pull experience. I actually just emerged from 5 months of sabbatical because I got so incredibly burned out in the pandemic, being one of the, healthcare providers on the front line with basically holding the mental health on my shoulders of so many people.
Totally.
Even now, even after doing this work for so long and embodying this intention for essentially my whole life, I'm still doing the dance. I'm still trying to figure out how to do it in a healthy way and how to be a human in this experience. So, now where I am, I've had a private practice in Denver, different locations in Denver for about 15 years. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a board certified art therapist. And so my practice kind of brings people into the psycho-emotional, spiritual, energetic, different layers of healing. And during my sabbatical, I was like, what is not working? Why am I so burned out? And I had some really powerful downloads from somewhere that basically to create the Radiant Life Project, which is a platform that includes therapy as kind of one thread of what I do, but now it's much more expansive and it includes speaking and workshops and retreats and still a small private practice. I have a new book coming out called The Radiant Life Project, which is a how-to manual for this work for people who either don't want to do the therapy or don't have the resources to do it. It's really accessible and it takes people down a really deep dive. So the work I'm doing now is really trying to reach larger audiences that can spread that ripple effect kind of even more profoundly. So
that's amazing. And one of the things I love about what you just said is how integrative and holistic what you're talking about is. Mm-hmm. And I think it'd be really interesting actually to talk about a little bit of the journey to getting to where you are with Radiant Life Project from where you were before in a little bit more depth, because one of the things, being someone who's stepping into a lot of this work, not from a therapeutic sense, but more from a coaching sense, and having had a lot of therapy over the years myself and experiencing all the different range and really valuing the experiences and the depth and the knowledge and wisdom that goes across all of these various modalities that support stepping into a truly fulfilled life. One of the things I always felt in my experiences with therapy was that there wasn't enough integration and enough holistic approach to it.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the experience of coming to, oh my gosh, there's so much more. There's so much more to this.
Right. Well, so I guess this is in the training programs that it starts in college and grad school. Mm-hmm. There's only so much training you can do in mm-hmm. the 4 years of undergrad. And then I did 3 years for a master's and I did get a ton of training. I went to a Buddhist founded grad school called Naropa University. So I got a really comprehensive meditation training along with my transpersonal counseling psychology degree and my art therapy degree. So I got a lot there, but that was really kind of lopsided in an opposite way from most therapy programs that are really
right.
Cool. That was sort of lopsided where I was like, I don't know anything about diagnostics, medications, like the clinical piece. So mm-hmm. after I graduated, I really worked hard to take different trainings and to work in different sites that would give me that clinical experience so that I could balance it. And so a big part of my professional journey has been taking kind of the staples that were taught to me and then going out there and trying to figure out what's the Kate flavor of all of this and what do I need to sort of supplement what I have so that I can create the balance that feels really authentic to me. And so I became trained in different forms of neuropsychology and how art therapy can be used through a neuroscience approach, through internal family systems therapy, which is like my favorite method.
I love IFS. I love it. I think it's amazing.
And I do it personally in my own work. I do it with my clients, and I've created an art therapy approach that sort of fuses art therapy with IFS that I love so much. And so like that, I just sort of pick and choose, and then I let go of the things once they no longer align, if they no longer align. I used to be really highly specialized in eating disorder treatment. That no longer feels deeply fulfilling and aligned for me. So I don't pursue that track anymore. And then I fill it with something that feels more radiant, more aligned. Because if I'm loving what I do and feeling really lit up, then that really translates through to my work, and the clients can feel it and the audience can hear it. So I never see myself as like stuck in a certain methodology. I'm always willing to pivot. And that's something I've actually had to learn because I used to be really rigid. And sometimes I still kind of go into that part of me that gets really rigid and is like, this is who I am and who I want to be and what society wants of me. But now I have the resources to be curious and look at myself and be like, why is this rigidity coming through? Like, how is that in some way either adaptively trying to protect me or trying to serve something in my life, direct me somewhere? Like, how can I see this as a messenger instead of as the line in the sand that I have to follow?
Oh my gosh. Well, so many things in what you just said. I mean, there's so many beautiful pieces. Those questions alone are so valuable for anybody to be asking themselves when they run into something, some form of behavior that seems to be misaligned with who they want to be, where they want to go. Just being able to ask yourselves those questions without shaming yourself around them is such a beautiful gift. And I would say also, what's so cool about what you just described is that you are walking the walk. You're talking the talk of the things you teach, and you're creating and serving from so much of your own depth and your experience, which is often something I see in both coaching and therapy that a lot of people miss. Like, they're using coaching and therapy as a means to not actually do their own inner work. And what you just described is in so much integrity and so amazing.
Thank you. It's a foundation for me in my work to walk this talk and to do this work. I don't ask anything of my clients that I either haven't already done or wouldn't already do. And I think that really it's our responsibility as healers to do our own work and to do it at a really multi-deep level so that when we come across people who need something from us, we're not projecting onto them. And if we do have some type of resonance with them, it doesn't end up kind of being muddied. Like, I can own what's my stuff, or I can speak to them from my experience. And also, I feel a lot less charged now about a lot of the issues that I've healed over time. So I can be more neutral when I'm sitting with a client who looks a lot like some form of me at some point in my life. Because if I feel a charge in my system, I know that it's my stuff that I'm not healed yet, or that still needs me to attend to it. And now I notice a lot less charge, even when we're talking about very familiar things. And that helps me be a better healer. It helps me be more clear.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't that also just how it helps us live a better life? Because if we don't have that charge in so many of these situations, we actually get to be more present and in where we are and enjoying the life that we're creating around us. And that's so, so beautiful. I hope to those who are listening that you aren't hearing my dog too much. 1 second. I'm going to just let him in. I am one of the things we started chatting about before, and I didn't want to get too deep into before the show because it is such a beautiful, important topic and one I'm experiencing right now. But your first book was about the journey into motherhood.
Yeah.
And one, where has that thread continued into the Radiant Life Project? And I mean, you just have so much depth in that piece of it and the journey we were talking about from maiden to motherhood and what that looks like and the experience of stepping into a whole other part of your being.
Yeah, it's pretty profound. It's really profound to experience it. It's really profound to write about it. And it's also really spectacular to witness people go through it. So I have a 9-year-old and a almost 7-year-old now. And my first book, it's called The Authentic Mother. It was basically birthed alongside my firstborn. It started out as a journal that I was using to process my own kind of difficulty with the early time of motherhood. And one thing led to another and it became a book. It's a creatively based companion book for new parents. It has art therapy directives and different levels of kind of creative expression and invitations for people that are based on my own experience, as well as the real artwork of like 35 real women who don't identify as artists, but they chose different directives for the book to work through their own transitions, be it like body image or how to navigate their social circles or deal with their families or their new baby, the bond, like all these different things. So that was a really powerful book for me to write. And honestly, it kind of feels like I channeled it. I just sat down, flowed right through, which sort of happened again, actually, with my current book. That's my favorite way to write, when it just feels like it's moving through. And my journey of motherhood since then, in the 9.5 years that I've been a mom so far, it's just a navigating process. You know, it really, it's shifted a lot. My identity as a mom has become a lot more present and a lot more confident, but I'm still like, what, how do we do this? How do we be good parents in the world, you know? And I just keep remembering that no matter what, the biggest achievement I'll ever have in my life is helping to shape the next generation with the teachings that I offer to my kids. And it doesn't really matter what else I do in the world if I can help these two little ones become good people who can then make their difference in the world. So I hold that as my intention so far through their lives. And I intend to, as they continue to grow as well. But the journey's evolving. I don't know what to do with a 9-year-old. I'm just like, who are you? It's like every 6 months, a different kid, you know, every year they're completely different. And it's really, it feels like a gift to watch them evolve. But I think that the thread for me since day one of starting that book to now is the selflessness of motherhood is really hard for me. I've just never quite adapted. I've never quite, you know, been okay with the level of giving that it requires to be a parent. So we'll see. I feel like maybe that's one of my sole purposes, and it feels challenging because it's important that I learn it.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And it's so interesting because it really leads to one of the things I wanted to ask you about in this. And probably because it's something that I'm experiencing. One, I relate to that so much. As a woman who always knew who I wanted to be a mother, but also always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, that I've been very driven and ambitious. I know I'm walking through, and I think I will always walk through this, and it'll evolve in many different ways, but I'm walking through an experience right now of really grappling with this idea of duality for myself, which I know is not entirely true, but of having to make a choice that I either have to choose to be a very present mother, or I choose to be a very successful business owner. And I know from a logical place that's not true. And I know I'm walking through a little bit of underworld right now in grappling with that. And what does it mean? And seeing the kind of self-created roadblocks I'm creating for my business as I go into birthing my second child and experiencing what that looks like, and trusting the universe that I am going to step into the version of mother that I need to be. And I'm going to continue to step into the version of entrepreneur and business owner, and that will evolve too. So I think one of the things you said that is so interesting, and I've never thought of it that way, but that grappling with the selflessness that is required, and the grappling with the parts of your identity that aren't wrapped in mother, and how to integrate it all. It's such a huge part of this journey.
Yes, for sure. And I think it kind of goes back to your question about the transition from maiden to mother, because that transition requires a new facet to be integrated in your life that was never there before, but will always be there from that point forward. There's a point of no return, right? When you become a mother or a father or a caregiver.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
This applies to all people who care for children in some really meaningful way. And so I think it's almost like I'm thinking of a stone that gets sort of polished and carved for a piece of jewelry. And when you cut a facet into that stone, it will always be there, and it will always reflect light in whatever way it does, and in a new way than it ever did before. And so the maiden has no way of understanding what the motherhood experience will be like, but the mother has the remembrance of what it was like to be the maiden. And so that comes in as journey material, right? As wisdom and experience. And then with each child, it's a different experience of that transition from maiden to motherhood. And with the same child, it's kind of an evolving experience because they change
over and over again.
Right. And you know, like I said to you earlier before we started recording, there's also the maiden to mother process of how we nurture our inner child and how we mother ourselves. And in my experience along the way, I have been doing inner child work at the same age that my children are.
Oh, wow.
Really powerful, especially with my daughter, because I have a son and a daughter. And so my daughter has sort of reflected a lot of opportunity for me to work on little girl stuff that I didn't get and that I really grieve for. And so, like, for example, when she's losing it and having a tantrum, which I wasn't allowed to do, I had to be a really good girl to have the love and belonging that I needed for survival. So when I watch my daughter Heidi fall into tantrum land, I let my little girl inside of me have that experience alongside of her. And then I visualize myself holding both of them in that experience and really acknowledging that it's a scary world and they're figuring it out. And these are big feelings. And I am here as a container to hold you both. So I've healed my inner child as I've parented my true daughter. And it's kind of been a powerful experience.
What a beautiful way to think about that and consider implementing in your life. I mean, if for anyone who's listened, I've talked about this a bit on a couple different shows, that my journey into becoming the parent or learning about parenting styles in a way that I didn't have. And I want to clarify that that is not in any way a reflection of my parents, because I think that my parents did absolutely everything the best they could with the tools they had. And every generation, I hope, is breaking generational cycles. But it has been a journey to learn about respectful parenting tools and conscious parenting and do those pieces and then find that these are the exact tools that I need to do and my clients need to do to reparent themselves right now. So what a cool experience to think about and kind of be intentional with reparenting yourself in the ages that you're parenting your child and kind of allowing that experience to happen together. That's so beautiful.
Thank you. It's been very rich. Yeah, it helps to have photographs of your little selves, so you can kind of hold in mind. For me, at least, I'm very visual. So holding my little face in mind and imagining her right next to my little daughter's face. And then, in some way teaching them to be friends, right? So that my daughter can see that part of me and can really feel like she's being seen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really incredible. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like from a tools perspective, that's an interesting tool to have, right? Like, okay, I have some pictures of me as a little girl at the same age as my daughter, so that when these things pop up and I recognize some of the triggers happening in myself, I can then take some time, little time in ritual or however you're going to sit with it and really work through some of those things and allow yourself to have that experience and visualize it and repattern, I guess, the way that you were parented so that you can now be the present parent for your child and yourself.
Yeah. So to me, this kind of transitions a little bit into parts work, which is the conversation about IFS, but there's a lot of different modalities that use parts work. And it's essentially, for the listeners, it's the parts of us that kind of fractal off when we're moving through life that meet something challenging or traumatic. And then a part of us learns how to basically try to never have that happen again, try to protect us. So the parts that fractal off in childhood, I think of it like a school bus full of little kids, little versions of me, right? And there's like the good girl and the angry, repressed little girl and the wounded child and the happy child. And it's like this whole school bus full of kids. And so usually when something comes up in my adult life, it doesn't feel like an inner child problem just at surface level, right? I might feel defensive. I might feel reactive. I might feel controlling. And so the way that I dive into that in my work is as soon as I feel that charge, because I know if there's a charge, it's my stuff. Otherwise, I would just feel neutral. So if I feel a charge, I ask myself, how old do I feel right now? And then I just kind of give myself a few breaths to sit with that question. And usually I feel pretty young and I feel pretty scared or threatened in some way or reactive in a very basic human way that I can trace back to a young age. And then oftentimes it's a teenager. Sometimes it's, an 11-year-old. A lot of times for me, it's a 3.5 or 4-year-old. That's where a lot of my wounding happened. And so then sometimes it's helpful for us visual people to create actually a photo album of all of our different selves. So I have photos of myself at all these different ages. And if I'm home and if I have the space, I'll go find the photograph of that version of me that was triggered by the experience. And I'll sit with her. I'll talk to her. Sometimes you can dialogue with these parts. I like to do so in writing. So I'll write to her. I'll say, hi, I know you're there. What's going on? And then I'll switch colors and I'll embody her and I'll write back to myself and have a conversation that just moves through paper. And so that's one way that I like to do it.
That is awesome. That's such a great tip and tool for anybody that is interested in diving into those pieces. As we talked about and briefly already, I think parts work in general and IFS is such an incredible tool in therapy and in the advancements of therapy that didn't really exist until the last 10 years or so, that a lot of people don't know about. There's still kind of the standard of talk therapy, and there's a lot more depth that you can actually get into. And the more that we know about, neuropsychology and neural patterning and how we can change the way that we are interacting in life is really incredible. Yeah. So okay, we've talked about your previous book, and you started to make some reference to the fact that you have another book coming out. Yeah. And that one of the things you said to me before was that this really felt like it's bigger than you. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about what this is and the experience of having the Radiant Life Project come through you.
Yeah. So I started writing this book a bit before my sabbatical because I felt like I have this sort of living library that I hold in my mind. And it's what makes, I think, a really unique relationship between myself and my clients, that I can kind of just like pull from a really broad variety of choices for them to support them with what's coming up. And I've started calling it my living library. So I've realized that that's not a thing that everyone has. And it's something that makes me unique as a healer because I don't even know what to call it, but just some kind of really spectacular memory system that saves and holds a lot of information. And so it occurred to me that other people need this information than the people who can afford to sit with me in my office and the amount of people that I can actually see. So I sat with this during my sabbatical, meditated a lot, and would get these like downloads during meditation that felt like guidance. And they just truly helped me write this book. It truly felt channeled. I would get an inspiration out on a walk or in meditation, and I would just sit and like, it would just come right out. And the book proposal process for finding publishers is a really complex and lengthy process. And so I worked for about 6 months on getting that book proposal written. And then when I sent it, I meditated right afterwards. And I had this like really wild, profound experience of being surrounded by my ancestors and the people who I know and love who are on the other side now. And it was like this giant group hug celebration that this work is coming into the world. And then I had that experience again once I got the offer for a book contract from a publisher. It was that same like spiritual group hug from the other side. Wow. It was so incredibly powerful. And I'm pretty grounded in, this 3D world. So I don't tend to live in that experience very often. So when I get experiences like that, they're really profound for me. And so it really truly feels like the world is waking up in a new way. I think the COVID pandemic pushed the button in a lot of us that was like, wake up time. What do you need to change? In what ways are you about to evolve? And I think this book is part of that. And I think making a $34, piece to the journey accessible rather than the cost of ongoing therapy or coaching makes it easy for more people to have this as a tool. So that's kind of how it feels to me. It just feels massive. And I feel like a vessel that it is moving through in order to get to more people.
That is amazing. And what a beautiful experience to allow yourself to be that. I mean, it's really putting down of the ego in a lot of ways and allowing what is going to come through, which I just had like all these floaties go by my face. So, yeah, apparently spirits are everywhere. This is, and similarly, I live in a very 3D grounded, earthy witch place where most of the time I'm like in that space. And when I've had those kinds of experiences in my writing, and I'm not writing a book at the moment, and the writing comes through, it feels so powerful and it feels like it's mine to give, but it's not mine.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think the piece of it that becomes mine is my experience of walking this talk and living this journey, right? And acquiring all of this knowledge from a me perspective. But then the way that it's offered is with the understanding and the honoring that it's going to look different for everyone. And all I can share with you is my story and my skill base. And that's a really strong platform for you to stand on so that you can take this work in the direction that you're ready for. And that's calling for you and that you've been really deeply yearning for, but you haven't been able to necessarily put your finger on. So the book is like, here you go. This is everything I know. Make what you will with it.
That's incredible. And what a beautiful gift, because I totally agree that there is a lot of inaccessibility, but I think that's changing. Just like you said, I think that there is both the desire and a lot more information is becoming accessible with opportunities like this and putting that out into the world so that people can embrace that and can really find the things that's going to make them feel more aligned in their life. And you talk a lot about creativity and alignment and the importance of those things to really step into a life that fills you up.
Yeah. Yeah, I've developed 3 pillars to the Radiant Life Project that I feel pretty well kind of wrap it up. It's authentic integrity, which is essentially the fusion of those 2 massive things. Creativity, which can look like art, but it does not have to for the people who are not artsy. And aligned relationships, which I have found to be such a major hang up for so many people. And so with those 3 pillars, we can achieve that radiant life. And not only can we like nurture our own pilot light so that it roars with brilliance, but we can impact that in other people and we can kind of share that light, and it does have a ripple effect. And so if something feels wonky in your world, it will probably come back to a misalignment, either with the authentic integrity, the creativity, or the relationships in your life. And that includes your relationship with yourself and all your other little selves that are on the school bus, So it's just an important synergy of those 3 pieces that helps people have kind of an accessible direction to follow so that they can do the work in their own flavor.
Okay, so I want to pull out one of those pillars because I feel like it is one I know has been an important part. I mean, all of them, which is why they're pillars. But one of them, I think, is a really important piece that I have found people don't often recognize how big of an impact it is. And that is the aligned relationships piece. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey with that and how it's impacted you in your knowledge base beyond just like knowledge you've learned from outside, but knowledge from your own journey.
Yeah. So the basic concept of the aligned relationships is essentially having relationships that are congruent with who you actually are and with who you're becoming for your highest good, rather than who society has told you to be or what feels popular or sexy or status oriented. And so those types of relationships show up: family, friends, work, school, everywhere. And in my journey, it's really been kind of a healing process from those little girl wounds. That little girl me was taught to be perfect and happy and put together at all times, quiet, compliant. And so I took what I learned from relationships from the only place that I knew, which was my family system. And I lived that way for a really long time. And thought, more friends was better than less friends, and with sort of some feeling in the back of my mind, like if I ever really need something, probably need a lot of people just in case. Right. And I sort of collected people, through high school, college. And then there became this kind of experience of shedding that needed to happen because a lot of those relationships, most of them, they were like fluff, they were highly conditional. A lot of them used me as a therapist because that was my skill base, and my old conditioning told me to just give people what they want. And so they didn't always feel reciprocal, which I have really learned is a cornerstone of an aligned relationship is reciprocity.
Mm-hmm.
And so through my journey of sort of shedding, it was really painful in a lot of ways, because it wasn't so much about my family of origin anymore, although they were still kind of always there as the undercurrent. But it was about the people who were at the school bus waiting for our kids to be dropped off, or the old friends that I've had for 15, 20 years that actually don't feel like friends, but there's history there. I think we all have this, right? These people that are in our lives, but we don't often ask ourselves, why is this person in my life? Do they still fit in my life? Do I fit in theirs? And am I getting what I need from the relationship, or am I just draining myself trying to uphold some standard that an old version of me thought she needed in order to survive and be okay in the world? So the shedding process can be both highly empowering and also really painful and scary, because it leaves a void where those misaligned relationships used to be. And for a person who thought, relationships were essential for survival, especially that flavor of relationship, it feels like a gaping void. Like, oh my God, I hope I don't need anybody because I don't have very many people left. But then what I realized was that I couldn't possibly attract any aligned people until I released all of the misaligned people and created space.
Yes. This is a topic in what you talked about in this that I actually don't think I hear enough in a healing journey, in a discussion of truly finding your own alignment and finding your own fulfillment, and that I see a lot of people experience a lot of pain around. And the two sides that I see is often the shedding side of recognizing that there's no longer an alignment and starting to feel a little bit lonely around it. Like you don't have people that are aligned, and you have to be able to zoom out a little bit and see that actually you are calling in people, and people are showing up and showing back up into your life that you might have lost touch with. There's a lot of places where they are. It just may not look the way that it always looked before. Mm-hmm. And recognizing that that's a part of the process and a part of the shedding and a part of the growth that actually allows you to finally experience life in the way that you've really always wanted to. And the other piece is the shedding of the parts of yourself that aren't aligned anymore, but you so identify with or have a lot of pride over. I know one of the things that I experienced a ton was this fear that if I allowed myself to move through these processes, if I allowed myself to step into the things that I really wanted to be doing, would that mean that the parts of myself I'm really proud of go away? And being able to see, oh no, there's actually just these parts of that part that no longer have to be shadowy, that get to be here and get to be integrated. And it's all still a part of me. I'm not actually shedding. I'm integrating new parts of that version, which is so cool. And that can kind of happen even in some of those relationships where they're not aligned here anymore, but maybe they're aligned over here, and you just have to recognize it and be like, okay, I embrace you for that part of you, but I'm not going to expect you to be something else in my life that you no longer can be.
Yeah. The metaphor that I really like for this kind of shedding, this is not like a snake shedding its skin and then moving away and forgetting about the skin, right? This is more like the weaving of a tapestry where what you are shedding has been woven, and it is part of your story, and it's part of what brought you to the place where you can now weave in something new. And I like to think of it as colors, right? So maybe these past experiences were weaving in red, and there was a part of the tapestry that needed to be woven in red so that we could then move to purple. And now we're weaving in purple. And not to say that we won't again have to weave in red again, because sometimes we have to repeat and learn the same things from different perspectives over and over. But we will never have to go back to what we had already learned in the facet that we had learned it, because it's already part of our story. And so at the end, whenever that is, we're going to have this big, long, beautiful tapestry that is like a map of our story and of our history and what brought us to the present moment, where we then have the choice and autonomy to choose what we want to weave in next.
That's such a great analogy. And it really does allow you to see it from a different perspective than I'm going to lose relationships or I won't be this part of myself anymore. It actually is such an evolvement, and the way that those people or the parts of yourself are going to show up is going to evolve into an even more beautiful version than was there before.
Right. And we need all of the misaligned relationships, because at the time we were in those relationships, we were in them because we were learning from them, for better or worse. We needed those experiences, and moving away from a misaligned relationship actually reflects your growth, because it means that you've learned what you needed from that and it's no longer necessary. And you can move into something that feels like the next experience, the next learning journey, only because you had that relationship that brought you to the place where you can have something different.
It's that belief that everything is karmic if you allow it to be. And karma not being the idea of like, I did something bad, so I'm having something bad come back to me, but more the idea of we have these life lessons that are meant to be learned, that are meant to help us evolve. And the experiences and the humans that are in our lives are the things that create karmic experiences. And if we allow ourselves to ask the questions that you talked about at the beginning, like ask ourselves, what is it in this? Like, what is the lesson? I actually don't even like the word lesson. I've been kind of like embracing the idea of all of these misaligned relationships or experiences. They have medicine in them. They have medicine for us to grow from, improve from, and be, they're the guiding path to get us to the version of ourselves that we're trying to become if we allow them to be.
Absolutely. This is Earth School. We're here. We're here for really deep learning on a soul level. I think no matter what your spiritual affinity is, if any, we can all pretty well agree that the body isn't it. The body is the vessel. And there is some consciousness and some soul experience, call it whatever you want, that's moving through the world in this body. And it's my belief that we're here to learn, and we're here to experience from this embodied state, because whatever form we take after death or before birth, we can't possibly learn in the 3D. We don't have a 3D. And so now we do. And when we're given this life, and when we're given this body that has these senses and this visceral experience of the world, it's our honor to live it and to experience it. And even though life can be hard and painful and full of all kinds of tribulations, this is a gift to us for our highest good, that we could have no idea what that is. Our brains have no sense of all of these existential possibilities, but our souls do. And so it's our job to just keep walking this path and keep learning in all the ways that the world presents us, be it relationships, be it hardships, trauma. All of these experiences become woven into that tapestry. And it's important.
And looking at it from that perspective allows you to not just put this silver lining wash over it. It allows you to actually really embrace and integrate the experiences, experience them fully, and grow from them without, pretending like the hard things don't happen.
Or not. Right? We also have the choice to not experience them. We have the choice to dissociate. We have the choice to know ourselves. And I think it's okay that we recognize that it is our choice and that these lessons, it's not like a one-time shot. You can return to them when you're ready. And
this is true. My experience is that sometimes you don't always return to them when you're ready, at least what you think is ready.
Right. Some part of you is ready. Otherwise, our systems are exquisitely designed for our stabilization. And so it is my belief, and I've seen this in practice, that we actually don't engage learnings that we're not truly ready for. Even if they feel terrifying at the moment, the fact that you're there means that some part of you is ready. And I think of it kind of like the stacking of bricks. Like, you have to work with the brick that's on top. You can't pull one out of the bottom and be like, ooh, I want to work with that one, or you're going to destabilize your whole system. Everything will go crashing down. But if you grab the top layer and you say, all right, I'm going to work with this for a while, eventually you move down through the stack and you get to move through the layers that your system can tolerate and that you're actually ready to explore and that are ready to integrate.
This is so interesting. And I don't want to go too deep into this because I feel like we could end up talking for hours and we'll probably just have to have another show. But it's funny because when I really started, I'd done therapy for many, 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 many years. But when I started what I would consider a true healing journey, a real willingness to go in and look at the depth and look at the shadows and look at the different pieces of me, I kind of swung the pendulum a little far the other way. And I went really into like what I like to call trauma hunting. I was like, I wanted the brick that was like all the way at the bottom. I was like, let me at that one. And if I get rid of that one, and I was telling myself, get rid of, right? Which that my entire view on all of this has changed so much. And I think that was part of my journey, right? That was part of the experience I needed to have going through this was the trauma hunting piece and being like, I'm going to pick away at every little tiny thing and figure out how I can rid myself of it and heal every single piece of it. That allowed me to come back into balance and recognize, oh no, okay, the things and the lessons are gonna show up, but as long as I stay open. And I'm not just ridding myself of traumas. I'm not just getting rid of these parts of myself I had so much shame around. I'm actually looking at what the gifts are that are in them and what can be integrated and what are the beautiful, because shadow can't exist without light. So what are all of the pieces together? But it's funny, your analogy just made me think of like, oh yeah, oh no, I tried to get the bricks out that were at the bottom. Like I did that and it destabilized me. I went through some really, really, really dark periods. Without the level of support I probably could have used. Again, all integrated into my journey today. And I'm really happy that I can now support people and help them to maybe not. If they show up in my world, one of the areas I've had the experience of my knowledge base is to help them not try and go dig out the brick that has been buried for 300 years right now, but work on the one that's at the top so we can get there and allow the lessons to come in.
Well, and one of two things can happen if you're going for like the bottommost brick. You can try and not succeed because your system will protect you. And then you can be extremely frustrated, banging your head against that proverbial brick wall until you decide to just start at the top. Or you can shake that brick loose and you can destabilize your world. And that only needs to happen like once before you realize
one time
you don't want to do that. And then you find your way ultimately to the more gentle approach, which is it's like a game of Jenga. Like you want to find the pieces that are ready to come out, but you pull, right? If you pull the stuck piece, the whole thing comes toppling down. And then you're like, next time I'm not going to do that. We do that with our brick wall too. So I think, sometimes you got to bang your head against the wall to realize that hurts and that you don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. I think it's an important conversation because one of the things that kind of lights my fire a little bit is in the personal growth world and in the healing world, this kind of picking apart of people and this really shame-filled way of going about a lot of this. And I love hearing more people talk about it in a gentle approach that is still looking at what you need to look at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and at the risk of sounding cheesy, I think the strongest tool that we have, any of us, all of us, is to meet all of these layers of ourselves with love.
Totally.
At the end of the day, as cheesy as that sounds, if you can love the hurt parts of yourself or the really challenging experiences that shaped something in your life that you can't understand, truly have the love, the compassion, the support, and attend to them with those things, that's how we heal. We don't heal by beating ourselves to a pulp. We don't heal by excavating something that doesn't want to be looked at yet. Mm-hmm. We heal by sitting next to the barriers within ourselves and saying, I know you're a barrier. I know you're there for a reason. I'm not going to force past you. I want to get to know you so that maybe someday you'll let me see what you're protecting.
That's so beautiful.
It's all about love.
Oh, this has been so good. And I can't wait till your book comes out. Maybe we'll have you back on when that happens because it's going to be so amazing. You have a retreat in April coming up in Golden, Colorado. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm so excited about this retreat. I'm co-hosting it with an Ayurvedic practitioner and a yoga teacher. And we're kind of combining her flavor of healing with my flavor of healing in this really dynamic, synergistic mind, body, soul 4-day experience for a small group of aligned women. And it will have art therapy. It will have Ayurvedic food and teachings. It will have these transformative teachings of the Radiant Life Project and the magic that comes with supportive community. So I am super duper excited about it. There's just a few spots left. So if anyone out there is interested, you can find my retreat, my contact, everything you need on my website, which is theradiantlifeproject.com.
And we'll make sure that is linked in the show notes so you guys can check that out. Do you have a date yet for the book, or is that still kind of in the works?
It's not set in stone, but we're looking towards September 2023.
Okay, good. Well, we'll have to keep a very close eye out on that and support you in that when it releases, because I am sure based on everything we've talked about today, it is going to be an incredible tool for so many people out there. Thank you so much, Kate. This has been such a beautiful conversation. I can't wait to continue and have you back. If you are interested in learning more about Kate and what she's doing, you can go to theradiantlifeproject.com. And also Instagram, is that a good place for you?
Yeah, I am teaching little tidbits of the Radiant Life Project on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. I do have a YouTube channel. I'm a little more quiet on that front, but all of those are under the handle of the Radiant Life Project.
Awesome. All at the Radiant Life Project. We'll have all of those links also in the show notes. Thank you. This has been such a beautiful, informative, tool-filled talk. I have loved it. And I'm so glad we got to catch up.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Thanks for being on.